So good morning. My name is Marianne Stanford, and I'm the current chair of the Canadian Association for Postdoctoral Scholars. The title of my talk was meant to be decidedly a little bit controversial, and talking about what we call a postdoctoral crisis in Canada, from the ivory tower to the academic parking lot. I am a little bit out of my element here. I am a PhD in science. I have a PhD in microbiology and immunology, and I am a full-time postdoc working in translational cancer research. So this is a little out of my element, but having about 6 years of experience working with postdoctoral associations, first with a local postdoc association in London, Ontario, and then for the past almost 3 years as the chair of the Canadian Association. And so just a little bit of an overview about what I'm going to talk about. I'll give a quick introduction to the Canadian Association of Postdoctoral Scholars, because a lot of people haven't heard of us. And then I'll talk about the survey we conducted in 2009, getting a snapshot view of what a Canadian postdoc actually is. I'll talk about a very new issue, a very old issue, but a very new slant, and that's the issue of Canadian postdocs and taxation, which most recently came up in the federal budget. And then I'll talk a little bit about looking ahead, and then I'll leave lots of time for discussion, because I think one of the issues with the postdoc experience in Canada is that it varies widely from institution to institution. And one of the things we really hope to do is bring some uniformity to the postdoc experience. What is a postdoc? And I get asked that question a lot. Usually when I say I'm the president of the Association for Postdocs, they say, well, what are postdocs? They have many different names. We've been known as postdoctoral fellows, postdoctoral students, postdoctoral trainees, postdoctoral scholars. But currently in Canada, there doesn't formally exist a definition. So I've co-opted the definition that for the National Postdoc Association in the US for the sake of discussion. And they, in the US, define a postdoc as an individual holding a doctoral degree who is engaged in a temporary period of mentored research and scholarly training for the purpose of acquiring the professional skills needed to pursue a career path of his or her own choosing. It's pretty weighty, but this is basically how we define a postdoc. So I often talk about the view from the parking lot, and I entitled this the academic parking lot. And so I often start this as more of a discussion starter. And I say that postdocs have been sold a couple of common myths in this country. The first one is the mass retirement myth. And I give the date 1997 because that was the year that I entered graduate school. And that's when I was first told that graduate school is a great opportunity to go into academia because there will be mass retirement. Professors will retire en masse, and we will need graduate students who are trained to fill those positions. It is now 2010, and this has not yet happened. The second point is one that I often hear in life sciences, but I'd be interested to know if it happens in other fields, that Canadians who want to be successful, particularly in academia, should not postdoc in Canada. There's a prevalent idea that you need to get international experience, and the only way to get international experience in research is to leave the country. And I think the third one is that if you're not successful and get an academic position, then the positions that you can fill outside of academia are plentiful. Well, there's always industry, there's always government, there's always nonprofit. And increasingly we're finding that those jobs are just not there. And then the last one that we're seeing more and more is that academic excellence results in academic positions. And there's a lot of research and academic excellence that are not resulting in academic positions. And so why is that happening? Is that there's this perfect storm that has come up with this postdoc reality in Canada, that the elimination of mandatory retirement for many faculties has eliminated this mass retirement myth entirely, and that many professors are moving on beyond retirement age because there's no impetus to retire. And then there's also this focus by many academic institutions to increase the number of graduating PhDs. I know that in Ontario there was the Ray report that came out a couple of years ago talking about how in this knowledge-based society we needed to increase the number of graduate students, particularly PhDs. We actually submitted as postdocs a submission to the Ray report, and as far as we know, there was no mention of the word postdoc in that document. And there's also, we're seeing an increase in the hiring of instructors who are part-time, contractual and temporary, which are removing a lot of these opportunities for tenure-track positions. And so all of that creates this perfect storm that we call the academic parking lot. So who are CAPS? Well, we're the Canadian Association of Postdoctoral Scholars. We were formed in 2007 by a group of postdocs who met at a conference for the National Postdoc Association in the US. We got together and we said, this is great, we're learning about all these policy changes in the United States, but there are things that are very specific to Canada, and we need a Canadian institution. We exist in a committee format in which we have representatives from a number of university associations. Currently, we have representatives from Memorial University in the east to UBC in the west, and UVic also in the west. And we do see a certain amount of turnover because we do see turnover in the postdoc population in general. We are still in our infancy, and we are the first to admit it. And we work completely as a voluntary organization. All the members of our committee are full-time, which often means full-time plus, postdoctoral fellows. So this is the things that we do in our spare time because we believe that it's important. The structure is that we function as an ad hoc committee. We have representatives from a lot of universities. And what we are trying to do is trying to advocate policy around the postdoctoral experience. And really what we found when we first started out is that we didn't have the solid information about who postdocs were in Canada, so it was very hard to advocate on their behalf. So we were depending on US statistics from a very large survey conducted in 2003 called the Doctors Without Orders survey. It was conducted by the Sigma Xi Foundation. And that was a great resource, but what we kept hearing is, well, what about in Canada? Who is the Canadian postdoc? And so we conducted a survey in 2009. We designed the survey questions, so anybody who has an expertise in conducting surveys will know that this is not a scientifically sound survey. We did this on our own and did not have the budget nor the will to conduct it in a very scientific manner. We conducted the survey online from April 1st to the end of June in 2009. We advertised through our committee and our networks. We disseminated the survey in both English and French. We received 1,192 responses, and then we analyzed the data with the CAPS committee with the help of actually one of our postdocs who does actually do statistical analysis of surveys as her profession. So we're pretty confident with how it was analyzed. And we have, I said here, but I actually don't have any with me, but we do have an online version of the complete survey and all the related language around the survey, which can be found on our website.